Good morning, class. We're going to get into the reason why Mufatu was afraid of the sea here, even though he lived around amongst people that were always in the sea, and his father, the chief of these people. It was a sea that Mufatu feared. He had been surrounded by it ever since he was born. The thunder of it filled his ears, the crash of it upon the reef, the mutter of it in the sunset, the threat and fury of its storms on every hand. Wherever he turned, the sea. He could not remember when the fear of it first had taken hold of him. Perhaps it was during the great hurricane which swept Hyakura when he was a child of 3 years old. Even now, 12 years later, which means he's 15, so think of a 15-year-old, that's a freshman in high school, Mufatu could remember that terrible morning. His mother had taken him out to the barrier reef to search for sea urchins in the reef pools. There were other canoes scattered at a wide intervals along the reef. With late afternoon, the other fishermen began to turn back. They shouted warnings to Mufatu's mother. It was the season of the hurricane, and the people of Hyakura were nervous and ill at ease. Charged, it seemed, with an almost animal awareness of impending storm. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but the animals can a lot of times tell you when the weather's going to change. A lot of people say if there's a whole bunch of birds on a line, like, for example, a telephone pole line, that rain is a-coming. Some people that have arthritis in their knees or their joints can tell when the pressure changes, meaning some kind of storm is coming. And these people who lived on this island where there was lots of hurricanes would have this idea like, I can feel it, something's changing, here's a hurricane. Nowadays we have all these newscasts, they always tell us when a hurricane's coming, but before the time they would not know that. But when at last Mufatu's mother turned back toward shore, a swift current had set it around the shoulder of the reef passage, a meeting of tides that swept like a mill race out into the open sea. It seized the frail craft in its swift race despite all the woman's skill. The canoe was carried on the crest of a churning tide through the reef passage out into the outer ocean. Now we have these nowadays too. Down by Lake Michigan, they're called rip currents, and sometimes when the waves are coming in really fast and hard to the shore, well, all that water's coming in and it has to go out, and a lot of times these currents will pull swimmers out in Lake Michigan. That's why when there's heavy waves, they say, don't go swimming in Lake Michigan. And so this current caught the woman's boat. So you got the mom, the wife of the chief of all of their island, and you got the 3-year-old son. Mufatu would never forget the sound of his mother's desperate crying. He didn't know then what it meant, but he felt that something was terribly wrong, and he set up a loud wailing. Night closed down upon them, swift as a frigate's, it's kind of a bird, wing, darkened the known world. The wind of the open ocean rushed in at them, screaming. Waves lifted and struck at one another. The crest hissing and spraying. The poles of the outrigger were torn apart from their thwarts. That means where they were joined to the canoe. The woman sprang forward to seize her child as the canoe capsized. That means it tipped over. The little boy gasped when the cold water struck him. He clung to his mother's neck. Moana, the sea god, was reaching up for them, seeking to draw them down to his dark heart. Off the tip of Hyakura, the uninhabited islet of Tikito. Go ahead. I was not expecting her today.
Okay, so just tell her that just have to come back next week then.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Off the tip of Hikura, the uninhabited islet of Taquito lay surrounded in darkness. It was scarcely more than a ledge of coral, almost awash. The swift currents bore directly down upon the inlet. Dawn found the woman still clinging to the Pura pole, and the little boy with his arms locked around his mother's neck. So they made it all night in the ocean. And this pole would be like what we would call nowadays a paddle. And so the boat tipped over, but she held on the paddle, which would have been made out of wood, which would have floated on the ocean. So she had kind of a lifesaver, a life vest in this wood. So she's holding onto that, and the boy's holding onto her all night in the ocean. And now they kind of crash on this little inlet there. The grim light revealed sharks circling. Little Mufasa buried his head against his mother's cold neck. Uh-oh. Cold? That's not a good sign. Let's keep reading to find out what that really means. The author's given us a clue there. He was filled with terror. He even forgot the thirst that burned in his throat, but the palms of Taquito beckoned with their promise of life, and the woman fought on. When at last they were cast up on the pinnacle of coral, Mufasu's mother crawled ashore. With scarcely enough strength left to pull her child beyond reach of the sea's hungry fingers. The little boy was too weak to even cry. At hand lay a cracked coconut. The woman managed to press the cool, sustaining meat to her child's lips before she died. Oh my goodness. Now if I was a kid and I was 3-year-old, I was at the sea all night long and waves were crashing over me and I was screaming my lungs off all night and my mom was trying to save me, I'd be pretty afraid of the sea. But then we get saved from the sea only to have my own mom die at the hands of the sea. It would be super, super sad. And I don't know that I'd ever go back in that ocean. Well, I can see why Mufasa is afraid. Notice the little time lapse right here happening. All right, we'll catch some more tomorrow.